You're listening to WeDeepen Media.
Hi. Welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of WeDeepen, and also a certified professional love coach. WeDeepen offers matchmaking and relationship coaching for anybody who wants to put a skip into the dating journey, find your significant other, create family. I once was told that the only thing being offered to couples was sex parties and therapy. And there's so much more out there. WeDeepen is curating those experiences for you as well. Or if you're just somebody who wants to find your tribe, we are here to support. Go to WeDeepen.com, check out the calendar. You can also schedule a discovery session. Let's explore. Let's help you have more meaningful, loving relationships. If you like this podcast, please do subscribe, follow, rate it. It helps more people find it and helps me to continue to host it. In today's episode, I sit down with Layla El Khadri to speak about feminine leadership and the power of the menstrual cycle. This podcast I nearly called Menstruating in the Workplace. And it's a really interesting time for me to have this conversation because WeDeepen is growing and I'm feeling the growing pains and being challenged. And I'm always willing to go introspective and get curious about how I can be a better leader and activate from the feminine. I feel having a company called Feminine Weapon, or I'll call it an organization, as well as WeDeepen, it's really important for me to be in the essence of going on the inside, willing to do things differently, seeing all the destructive that crazy fast growth and startups and corporations have done for the world. And I'm doing it differently. We are doing it differently. And it takes a village of advisors and counsel to support me in that effort. Because I think that's a little bit of the different, I think masculine leadership versus feminine leadership. And they're both instrumental. But as a feminine leader, I am growing a village of people to support me in the vision. And that feels really important to me that I get to play that role as a connector. I connect you to the experiences, to the facilitators, and you to each other, and me to the advisors. As being an Aries and a projector in my human design, I always say I feel that I have this inside of me of wanting to be the best projector in the whole wide world. And for myself, like it's not about being competitive and being better than anybody else, but I know I have that fire and that power inside of me. So Layla and we get into the topic of feminine leadership. What does that mean? Layla is a leadership mentor. She's a somatic and embodiment expert and an author. She is a firm believer in the innate potential of human beings. Layla has dedicated over a decade to traveling around the world with the sole purpose to find all of the keys to activate human potential. She is an anthropologist. And she's one of the, I'm seeing this trend of the subcategory of human beings that are disaffiliating with the corporate structure, and they're taking the risks to go out on their own, beginning in their early 20s or any age whatsoever. And they are finding the keys and wisdom, and they're integrating that into their own world. And then they're taking that information and here to teach it and show it to us. And that is what she's doing here in this podcast episode. I'm super excited to introduce you to Layla and for you to dive into this wisdom with me. Please listen until the end when Layla shares her story of how she got here, because it's really interesting. If I could rewind the podcast, I would start with that and end with the others, but you're going to listen to the journey as we have the conversation and that experience. Enjoy. Thank you all. And I'll see you on the other side. like you have both inside of you and they're both like the goal is to get balance. So then if you speak of feminine leadership, that's a little, isn't that a bit
fantastic.
tricky?
It is. So we needed to tend to take the pendulum to the other side. And this is what has happened with feminism getting completely out of control. And it's what happened with the Me Too movement, getting close to very out of control.
The chaos, you get the chaos and the messiness in order to...
The pendulum needs to go completely to this. Also happening with the race conversation. It needs to swing back before it gets to the middle. So, as a society, especially in the West, we have developed and overdeveloped our masculine leadership. We are masters. You Americans are masters at it. So what is needed for us to learn now in order to bring it back to balance is feminine leadership. My business of the future will be called integrated leadership. That's where we want to go.
So when you say that what you see in American culture is this masculine energy, what do you see?
Oh my God!
What are you referring to?
Thank you for the question. I love this country. I am here now. My partner is from here. And as a European person, I have an outside perspective. It's also happening in Europe. It's happening in Asia. It's happening all around the world. The whole world has fallen into an out of control, very young, very masculine energy, very driven. So what I see is a society that's killing itself in the pursuit of a goal. The goal can be money, status, fame. In general, it's either love or meaning and relevance.
Love or relevance?
Yeah, it's desperately chasing for love, acceptance, validation, belonging, or for status. But it's completely out of balance in the way of pursuing it. There is no space in education for the aspects that belong to the feminine. There is not a lot of space in education for the pure art of nurturing. Not just nursing your babies, nurturing yourself, your body. We like skip meals because we have long working hours. Skip meals.
Are you at your desk? I mean, I've done that. New York City, I worked in corporate America
industry
there. Yeah.
Designed to shorten the time dedicated to nourish yourself. So what do you have? Malnourished people. They're eating all the nutrients, but they're having all sorts of issues in their bodies. There is not enough sleep. There is not enough self-care. And I'm not talking about getting your nails done once a month because that's your girl's day. I'm talking about really caring for your body and learning to listen what your body needs and having the power and the authority to create that in your reality. The reason why I stepped into entrepreneurship in my early 20s and never went into the hamster wheel, never, it's because I understood from the beginning that in that wheel, there was no chance for me to survive in a healthy way. And I was brought up in a conscious family. I was very lucky. My mom already knew these things. So it was impossible for me to survive in that world. Oh, I would have gone depressed. I would be in medication now.
You mentioned the word survival.
Yes.
And I see that a lot of people, while we're in this driven, motivated, not enough time, there's never enough time, space, is because a lot of people are out there fighting for survival. And I appreciate how you've taken your work into the space of feminine leadership, because in order to slow things down, it has to be from the top. And the top essentially gets to trickle down, because we all have, I've worked on sales teams, and the goals that they're giving their team tend to be, and also then the award systems for that to get your bonus are dependent upon how much effort and energy you put into into the bottom line, into serving that bottom line. When you are working with somebody in that, of getting to reframe what feminine leadership looks like, where do you begin? Like, where does the conversation start?
It depends on where the leader or the organization or the individual is at. There is multiple levels of leadership. There's an amazing book, and I won't recall the name of the author, but it's basically called Tribal Leadership. And names don't stick always with me. But I absolutely recommend it. You don't necessarily need to adopt that model, but it's a good framework to understand different models of leadership. So depending where the person is at, the conversation starts at basically just understanding the difference between goal-oriented and process-oriented. And what is the value of process-oriented? Because then numbers come and go like, well, yeah, but my company needs to hit these KPIs, otherwise we don't have a reason to exist. And this is taken away from it. And so it's just shifting the mindset of understanding that actually investing in this is going to increment definitely the productivity of your people and the happiness of your corporation or of your family or whatever you're leading. Understanding that a lot of the costs that you have as a leader to cover is coming from the result of humans not being led the correct way. A lot of conflict resolution that needs to happen. A lot of lack of original ideas, a lack of innovation, problems that we keep hitting upon again and again and again. Here is, the losses of last year and the year before and the year before, they're all around the same kind of problem. Why are we having the same kind of problem? Because we haven't created a space for one of the most important aspects of the feminine, which is the space of possibility. We are not incentivizing our people to think outside of the box. We're incentivizing them to hit markers that are predetermined in structures, masculine. But we don't create safe spaces for emotion to sprout new ideas that challenge the status quo. Those are feminine traits. And we have to eradicate them from society, because if you want to fit, you don't think outside of the box. You don't have your own original ideas. And you definitely don't take risks in certain areas. So what's happening now in very successful startups in the United States, which I'm very excited to hear about, is that some of their creative team and tech team have very big, juicy financial incentives for taking risk. And there is an amount of risk that they need to take every month. And so what's happening is amazing new ideas are sprouting. That is feminine leadership.
I had Dr. Avron Rice on one of my podcasts. I think he's episode 38. And he is a psychotherapist. He is in his 60s, so I like to refer to him as one of our elders. He is the author of a book called Hidden in Plain Sight, how men's fears of women are driving intimate relationships, or are pulling them apart in intimate relationships. And in that podcast, I found it interesting. He said that he believes that femininity is innate.
It's innate.
Is innate. And masculinity is earned. Does this resonate with you in any way?
Yeah. I had never heard that before, but it's actually really interesting. So it's 2 layers deeper than what I normally start at with masculine and feminine, but let me try to explain why that is really interesting. So the energy of the masculine is the energy of moving things forward, right? It's the energy of, if we could put 2 shapes, masculine is an arrow, feminine is a circle. So there is something about the energy of moving forward that needs to conquer the previous step so that it can move forward, right? That is what we could say is earning, because as you move forward, you're earning the energy. And so in traditional tribal structures, the kids will go through these rites of passage. The male kids will go, we had our own, the women. The male kids will go through these rites of passage, and they will earn their space as a man in the tribe. Not as a child anymore. Where feminine is innate, because it is very fascinating how this works at a biological level. So it is already within itself. We were talking about the field of possibility being the feminine, right? Like, just create a space for people to think outside of the box. Everything is possible. So everything is innately already there, right? It's like everything before the chaos, the Big Bang, before it became planets, before it organized in structures, where everything could have happened simultaneously. That is the absolute feminine. It's like pure chaos, pure possibility. So in a way, everything is innate within itself. But it's very fantastic, because we spoke before that feminine and masculine are not biological realities. However, like in our 3D reality, everything trickles down from the metaphysical to the tangible, right? You have an idea that doesn't exist, and then tomorrow you build a project that is in the 3D. So the same happens with this energy. The yin, it's in the metaphysical space, but when it starts going down in the layers of solidity and it grounds within biology, then we have the male organs and the female organs as that polarity within biology. Women are born with 3,000 unmatured eggs within themselves. Talk about being innate. But those eggs were already on your grandma's belly when your mama was inside.
I think you mentioned that when we first met. I found this fascinating.
Fascinating.
Okay, yes.
So we all, I get goosebumps. Humanity is innately living within us. However, it needs the masculine. Otherwise, those eggs never become nothing, right?
Do you think I understand the separating of masculine and feminine from the gender. But it's also kind of confusing, because majority of times if I, Dr. Pat Allen, are you familiar with Dr. Pat Allen?
Maybe.
She is another elder. She's probably in her 90s at this moment in time. She wrote the book Getting to I Do and many other books. And her teachings are very much of like the feminine and masculine. There's two polarities that come together. Of course, they don't have to be gender related. However, majority of the time they are. If I ask a woman, typically, which energetic do you want to play in the relationship? She will say, even if she's a boss babe, she will say the feminine energy. And a man will generally say that, although I feel sometimes that there's a little bit more of like a waving to it. And maybe it's because, as I'm speaking it out, maybe it's because that we have celebrated masculine energy in such a way that masculine energy is generally rewarded. It's rewarded with pay, it's rewarded with status. And so when a man wants to access that, feminine energy, that's looked down upon. How do in the whole, like there is like the separation of it, and then there also is the acknowledgement that there is, like as you said, women are born with these eggs inside of us. There are biological differences, and sometimes I worry that when we take the conversation and we separate it so much that we're talking in like we're talking so much in the meta that it's hard for people to fully relate to, and they get really confused, and why I think there's so much deep confusion around feminine and masculine. And another thing, and I don't know if this is ready to go there, but I remember when we first met, I mentioned that movie that the Daily Wire people have recently put out, the
What is a Woman?
What is a Woman?
Documentary.
The documentary. And you had said to me, I'm interested in talking about that, but I haven't figured out how.
Yeah.
How do I even speak of that?
Yeah.
And there is like this uncomfortability that us, even as leaders, have.
Oh, especially because we live in a cancel culture that's very dangerous for freedom of speech. So, yeah.
I mean, even so much if I was sharing on my, because all these different subjects are so nuanced, but we're all kind of timid to talk about it. And not to say that I look at the Daily Wire always out of curiosity. I don't necessarily believe everything they speak, but I'm like, oh my gosh, they are so courageous and bold for just getting out there and talking about and having these difficult conversations. And I shared how we were at an event yesterday together, Gospel Brunch, and I took videos of the event and posted them on my Instagram. And a friend reached out to me who lives in New York City, and she said, are you sure you want to keep those videos on your Instagram? Because where are all the black people? Like, that was all like a bunch of white people in a room. To almost that I, thought about, like, shit, should I take that down? Because diversity is really important, and having these conversations are important. And I do have the eye of like, okay, how do we go out and create invitations? And we're in a process, like we're learning what to do next. And in order to be a leader, we have to be willing to say the wrong things at times and to acknowledge the nuance and the gray that always is happening.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a teacher of feminine leadership, really unpack this all in an authentic way? And does that scare you as well?
Thank you for asking the question. I do go through processes of, can I swear?
Yeah, totally.
Fuck, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. When I am in this country, very specifically. Because I've also already experienced censorship in my own channel through, the two main platforms that we know that I don't need to mention, and I am still figuring out how to keep my business successful when these platforms decide that what I'm talking about is not supporting their agendas. So I do go through moments of, oof, and I also know, Christina, that if we don't speak, we are fucked up as a society and we're going down the wrong path. Mm. And that these division tactics, because that's what they are, division tactics are designed for us to lose complete sovereignty and complete power. Because we can only evolve when we learn to integrate all the perspectives, which is the basics of the feminine energy, is the circle. If we cannot sit around the circle and be absolutely capable to listen everybody's perspective, that is real inclusion. Also, the perspective of a room with only white people being okay, and a room with only black people being okay, and somebody who does not support the change of gender being okay as the person that wants to go and change her own gender. Mm-hmm. And until we don't learn this basic cohabitation, we are very vulnerable. It's very easy to throw us into a war. The us versus them is the biggest technique to dominate human consciousness, to dominate humans, and to take away our leadership. Because we are now attacking each other over the things that we need to partner out with each other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's such a like an epidemic of being offended.
That's terrible.
One of I think the greatest leaders of our time right now is a man named Daryl Davis. Are you familiar with Daryl Davis?
No.
Daryl Davis is a black man, and he started befriending members one at a time, members of the Ku Klux Klan, and he would convert them to leaving, to disbanding away from being a member, because he would befriend them and he would listen to them, and they would of course go, oh, you're not like the other black people. And as they got to know him and start to trust him, they start to see another reality, another perspective. And I think it's probably over like 400 members of the Ku Klux Klan have actually converted out of him just through a black man coming and befriending.
And having a connection.
And them realizing, it's even as we talk about potentially doing a dating dojo together, and your work featuring what I'm doing with WeDeepen, and that simple activity of eye gazing that you are inviting into the container, which is something in a conscious community. We've had lots of practice doing that. But oftentimes, too, when I bring somebody in and it's the first time doing it, there's such a level of awkwardness and uncomfortability. And I spent the past 2 years living in Maryland, and when I would come into these circles and facilitate that activity, and I would ask how many people have been guided through an eye-gazing activity, and a lot of times they all look like never. What is that? And there's such a realization of that we're all human in that one moment that happens.
And it is like, it doesn't matter how many times I've done it and facilitated, it's just the easiest answers are always the most powerful ones. Like I actually remember one case of a woman during an A-Fest event with, I think it was 500 people in the room, and I was guiding one of these experiences through dance. And at the end, she came very agitated and she wanted to share with me. And I think we actually captured this in camera. And I was like, how was it the experience for you? And she broke down into tears and she said, Layla, I was a very racist person. This is a white passing woman. I grew up in a racist home, and I was very convinced that there was a difference of in people's value based on the color of their skin. Like she shared from that place of vulnerability. And this changed today in the eye gazing exercise, because for first time in my life, I felt the soul of another being whose color was black. I had never been put in the place of looking at a black person with depth, without judgment. And this man who held her gaze was a man that had done this work often, so met her with a full open heart and deprogram and decondition these women in 30 seconds.
Wow.
People go through therapy and education for decades to understand the complex issue of racism and decondition themselves. And these women had a visceral experience. But you can't have those experiences when you don't dare to look at people beyond their color, because you're so scared of the conversation. And it's got really tough in this country lately.
Well, it's interesting, because I remember years ago when I would sometimes play these activities with myself of, I am going to try to hold a gaze with a stranger, with as many strangers as possible, in a short period of time. Like, you know, go out in the world and ride the New York City subways.
I do it in the subway, yeah.
Yeah, and have that moment. And I even remember there was another time where I studied Kabbalah for years, and I did one of they had a course, coming out of the darkness, and one of the activities was to do something that makes you really uncomfortable. I don't know if they said 100 times or not, but I chose to hug 100 strangers.
Oh, wow.
And having to go through that experience. And two, for me, I'll say I didn't grow up in a neighborhood, or, you know, in schools we were kind of like awkward, like, hey, good to meet you.
Super.
Even girlfriends, like you would just stand hi. And then I moved, probably it even took, a little bit in business in New York City was, you know, those awkward moments of there was the handshakes, and sometimes you would hug. And I always remember the really friendly people that would give the big hugs. I liked them better. I was like, oh, I really trust them. I love them. They want to hug. But then there was the other people who don't touch me.
Well, and after COVID, now there's this other layer of like, now you go to hug somebody and you're like about to kill them.
Yes.
And you don't even see their facial expression, so your brain can't even emotionally empathize, because I don't know what you're feeling, because I can't see if you're smiling or crying.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the thing that happened in, you know, when we were younger in school, that it was like, stop staring at me.
Yes.
Why are you staring at me?
This exercise that I conducted for Mind Valley, I actually start talking about how hurtful that has been, of not being able to stare at each other without feeling that it's intrusive.
Can you share about how you facilitate an eye-gazing activity?
Yes. Again, depends of the level that we want to go, the theme that we have, but all I'm going to do is create safety for something that does itself. I don't need to interfere. I don't need to mediate. The less I talk, actually, the better. So if we are in a big room and we can move, ideally we walk for a few minutes and I guide them into breathing so that they're relaxing their nervous systems. Because what's going to happen the moment you are gaze, no matter how trained you are, is you're going to focus your attention on somebody else and your nervous system is going to do this. Because it's a lot of presence. It's the most conscious form of life you can see in the whole planet. It's another human. So all we want to do is relax the nervous system as possible. They will close their eyes. We always start from eyes closed. And then they will open their eyes and meet the other person. And all you have to do is to be able to remain present. So I guide with my voice. Resist the temptation to smile and nod and laugh. And, people do all sorts of like they're approving each other's gaze. What are you doing? Just observe yourself. Stop. Relax. What are you feeling? Are you feeling a tingly sensation in your chest? Are you feeling like you're falling in love with this person and then everybody laughs for a moment and they relax? Are you feeling like you actually want to cry? And the moment you mention that, 6-7 people in the room pop and cry because you just gave them permission. Or do you feel like you really need to close your eyes because this is too intense? Then go ahead and close your eyes for a few seconds. There's nothing else that needs to be done.
Even to the closing of the eyes is the invitation of this is your own experience and you invite in free will.
Yeah.
If you need to go internal, you can go internal. If you come out, and that's part of the experience. Now, in that type of act, that's such a social activity that's enabling us to slow down and see each other, which seems like a quality of feminine leadership. Yes.
You're such a good student! Exactly. Creating connection, creating inclusion. We live in very compartmentalized society, so when do you and I hang out with elders if we don't get into special spaces? I mean, our lives are completely different, but if we are like in a working environment. So bringing different parts of the community to have moments with each other, different ages, different walks of life, creating space for nothing, like there's no goal. What's the goal of eye gazing? Staying present in the process, creating connection, creating nurturing,
seeing the other,
being seen and acknowledged, allowing space for emotion to come and be.
Which is one of the first, being seen and noticed. It is a practice of love, because majority of times people feel love when they feel seen and understood. So it's the first piece, and also too, one could even say that when you start to see, you begin to start to feel understood at the same time, because you see those emotions. And like if I'm making eye contact with you and I can, your eyes start to water, then I can start to understand there's somewhat of a grief inside of you, and then I can start to see the depth of your humanness, and then I can relate to my experiences of when I felt grief or sadness like this other person has as well.
And this is our safety. Like this is what builds deep safety in us as human. Because if I can feel what you feel and you can feel what I feel, now we are safe. Because I will not inflict pain on you because I will be feeling that pain. When you emphasize deeply with somebody and that person goes through something painful, your empathy makes you feel that pain. This is why we empaths need to learn mastery to survive in today's world. And when the person I'm empathizing with goes through joy, then I am receiving joy. It's called compersion. There's a word for it, compersion. compersion, ladies and gentlemen, the act of feeling pleasure by somebody else's pleasure. That has nothing to do with you.
I think that's in the movie Good Luck Rio Grande. Good Luck Leo Grande.
I haven't watched it, Emma Thompson.
Yes, Emma
Don't tell me anything. I'm going to watch it.
That word is a part of the movie.
God bless her.
I watched it last night.
Amazing. So one more thing I want to say about it is that, as you probably can tell, I'm a freak. And I like to go really deep with things, so I always go into the science of it. Also because I have a brother that's like the opposite of me. He's like absolutely masculine in his way of thinking, so I need to prove him everything always. So here is the neurobiological reality of connection. Our brains have something called mirror neurons. Mm-hmm. And this is the way we comprehend the world. This is the way we can move in reality, is that we see things and our mirror neurons mirror them back to us. So when I see you crying, my brain is feeling and understanding what is happening through mirroring crying. That's why sometimes if somebody's crying, your eyes will tear, or if somebody's in rage, you feel tension in your body, or if somebody has anxiety. We are literally mirrors of each other. We just have no training about it. So now mom has lost her shit and is going around the house hysterical, and everybody else is hysterical or numb.
Yeah, because a lot of us, we've blocked it from all the external stimuli that we're then putting into our bodies.
Then you just numb yourself.
Alcohol to cannabis to whatever it may be.
So you don't feel it. Why? Because we don't have training. Nobody has trained you to be here observing and experiencing the empathic reality of the other human being while keeping your center. That's what we're doing when we are gazing. I'm walking around asking you, how are you feeling while you are in this reality? So what I'm doing is, you have no other option than to look at this person, but my voice is bringing you back to your experience and to checking in with yourself. If we will do this exercise 5 minutes a day, every day for a year, society would change.
Eye gazing exercise?
Every single human in one country doing eye gazing exercise 3 minutes a day, and the problems that we're trying to solve will solve themselves.
Even couples. Like, it's a great activity for every morning to start the day with your significant other in seeing each other. Even if it's 3 minutes, 1 minute, but take that moment, your relationship. Like,
now you know why I'm in love with this man. I don't know if you've noticed it, but
he's very present.
He eye gaze with everybody, whether it's the police that's stopping him to ask him for his ID. He doesn't know any other way. And he doesn't fill up the space with any words, which makes people very uncomfortable. But if you have the ability to be with him, then the first few moments of your interaction with Pedro are pure eye gazing till that authentic.
And this is your significant other that you're...
This is my man.
Yeah. Which we want to do a future podcast.
Yes. So I won't tell much about him.
I want to get the juicy love story behind this.
Yes.
So there's, I can see that I have done this throughout my career. And they have, I don't know if you would say that's a feminine trait or a woman trait, but what they talk about it statistically is that women will... we wait to feel worthy. We wait to feel like when we're going for something, we want to feel ready for that moment, well studied, well prepared, well researched, whereas a man will just go for it and then he'll figure it out afterwards. So there's that oftentimes then what happens if you have two people going for the same job, that she might be like, oh, I'm not ready for it. She might even be more ready than he is. Yeah. But she won't go for it. Yeah. And he will just he'll just do it. He'll just jump in to do it. Is this something that you cover in?
Yeah. So I'm almost interrupting you because I'm super excited to answer. Yeah. So we can't generalize always. There is also
outliers.
Types of
always
people.
Outliers.
No, I like types of people, different designs. You are successful at being outgoing. That's your area of zone of genius. My IT man is very successful at being inward, and he develops multi-million-dollar IT inventions. So that then there is that. So men are more outgoing and some women are more outgoing. But if we are going to generalize to answer this, and there's a lot of studies around it, I think this is the result of the gender stereotypes that we have created. And is the result of sustained patriarchal structures that have made women systematically insecure and have rewarded male dominance systematically. I don't think this has nothing to do with the energies of the feminine and the masculine, because actually the feminine is way more impulsive, because the feminine is coming from emotion, and emotion is now. And the masculine is way more strategic, because it's coming from mind, and mind calculates. So if we were going to do this role separation based on the essential energies of the masculine and feminine, the feminine will be the impulsive one. And it will come with the answer when she feels it and come with the idea even if she's not ready. And the masculine will come very structured and prepared and with all the data. So what happens is we are living in a society that has evolved throughout the last 2 millennia, if not more, with a very intense targeting of certain things. And one of them is female sexuality. Completely shamed, completely out of the table, the temples, the workplace, no complete disregard to our monthly process, no consideration to how we feel when we're bleeding, and the fact that thanks to our bleed, we all exist. No space for what happens after we give birth for months while we are lactating. All of that gets ignored. So now you're still on the body, you're still feeling all of that, but now go figure how you survive in an environment that disregards that completely. So of course, immediately we're very inadequate. Because 2 weeks a month, our body is hormonating at a rate that will make men crazy to go through our hormonal cycle once. Crazy. And now you have to walk into the office and pitch a project the day that you're bleeding, when actually your brain is not prepared that day to be rational. However, 10 days later, you have more focus than any man in the room, because your testosterone is higher than any man in the room probably in that moment, and you're a smart bitch, and you will win anybody. But because you haven't been trained to know when that day happens and is random, well, if you're an A-type personality, then you push. Some days you're on it, some days you're pushing. But if you're not an A-type personality, you're gonna go back, because you can't play the lack of, no, maybe I'm blanking out, because that's what happens when I'm bleeding, because of what's happening hormonally in my body.
Can you explain the
I get so excited.
28-day cycle and how a woman may feel business-wise in week 1 versus week 2 versus week 3 versus week 4?
Yes, because I love you and I want your audience to have this. However, this is what I love teaching with time, because it's such a deep field of work. And in my program that I run... Give
us the surface.
I will, because the program I was telling you, the program that I run, women get to experience it and learning it at an experiential level throughout 3 months. Because one thing you cannot do with the feminine, it's categorize it. That's the masculine way. So there is a general calendar, and every single one of us is different. So the first thing you need to do is take what I'm going to tell you and test it for yourself and see where you fall. The cycle can be anywhere between 28 and I think it's 34, what the books say. For as long as your period is regular and there's a balance, there's a flow in it, it's okay. It's your body, it's your rhythm. We break it in 4 seasons, just like nature seasons. And we can also pair it with the movements of the moon, which will be the planet, the celestial body, it's not a planet, the celestial body that represents the feminine, where the sun will be the masculine. So many women track it with the moon. So the first season, if we start when we bleed, because it's the most visually obvious for us to start counting. So the moment that you bleed, that's the beginning of your winter. It's when you're going inward. It's when your body is shedding the blood. And it's when, to keep it simple and without getting into testosterone, estrogens, and hormones, basically what's happening is your entire energy and focus and awareness is in your womb. And it's with everything that is about letting go, since you are shedding, recognizing what no longer serves in your life and can go. What in your closet you're not wearing, you can let go. What kind of friendship is not supporting you, and you can let go. And in order to make that inventory, you need to take time to reflect. So the best thing that you can do if you're a founder and CEO and you can afford this, it's block that on your calendar and let your team know that you're not available. And something magical that will happen if you bring this awareness into your work field is that your female colleagues are going to sync up. Because you know this thing that girls sync up when we're together is also when we are together. It can be in different places of the world. So then suddenly the company is taking 1 week a month to pause.
Is it 1 week a month or just the days?
I'm saying 1 week because the average is for 28 days. It's 1 month cycle. It can be a 6 weeks week or a 5 week week or a 10 week if you have longer period. But let's say it's 1 week a month.
Okay.
Just to generalize. When you finish with this, it's like you come out of that cocoon into the world and very fast you're ready. Some women actually pick testosterone, which is this hormone, on the last day of their bleed. They're still bleeding, but they have already picked testosterone. For me, it takes me a couple of days. I'm very slow. But that second, third day after I'm bleeding, I hit the floor running. And I know I have 1 week now, so shit gets done. I'm focused, I'm in that week right now. I can speak.
This is a perfect week for you. I'm in week 4.
You're in the opposite side. For me, it tends to be with full moon or with new moon. And it's very funny because when I travel to the other side of the month, then I get a bit out of whack for a few days, to the other side of the world, because I live in Bali as well. I get a bit, and then I change and I bleed in the opposite side. But if we were really sync up with the moon, we will all bleed in the new moon, and we will all ovulate in the full moon. And there's a reason to this. So remember we talked about all the eggs being already inside, but not being mature when we are babies. When we go to puberty and we have our first bleed, is the first time that our hypothalamus sends a signal to our womb, to our ovary, and tells the first egg, you're ready to go. And so the egg gets matured, travels through the ovary, and jumps into the uterus. Does not get fertilized and bleeds. That's our first bleed. Now, every month, the hypothalamus, in the ovulation time, is going to tell your ovary, now, next. The light of the moon triggers the hypothalamus response. This is how brilliantly interconnected with Mother Nature we are. So what happened when we introduce artificial light is women stop having the light of the moon to sync them up. And then we start bleeding in different moments of the year.
This is something that was talked a lot about at the biohacking conference, is the blue lights and how that is affecting our menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that you brought that up.
It's terrible. I mean, it's great once you know it, because then all you need to do is open the window. At least that one, we still have it for free. So full moon, hypothalamus wakes up, ovaries get to ovulation. Now we enter on the third season. So if the previous one, I was in my more masculine energy, go, I have full power. Now I enter in the most feminine. I become magnetic, but not just as a metaphysical, spiritual thing, as a biological thing, because my body has suddenly a lot of estrogens and it smells like it's ready to be fertilized, to just keep it very biological here. And that's the week of our ovulation. So if you need to ask for a promotion at work, you need to have an uncomfortable conversation with your boss, or you need to convince somebody of any project or fundraise, that is your week, girl, because you're irresistible by nature. Like, they're gonna smell it. It's like it's impossible to avoid, unless you are on the business of birth control. Then things
If you're
change.
on birth control or potentially on Zoom, a lot of us are working remotely. We don't get those.
Yeah, I mean, you're still very attractive and very confident. Like, you will see and feel it, but yes,
There is a missing component to it.
It is. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then week 4.
And then, so that is our week of also more teamwork. The previous week was more, it's better to, like, you're fastest alone, and it's more for like direction oriented. This is more teamwork and, you know, co-creation. And where the previous week, it's not the greatest week. So the second week is not the greatest week for creative work because you're more goal oriented. This week is great for creative work because all the things feminine are very much active in this week. And then you come back into my least favorite, but I'm making peace with it because I'm learning what this week is about. This week has a lot of stigma in society because of the PMS. Now, let me tell you something. PMS actually means please make space.
Oh, I love that. Please make space.
Yes, because this week a hormone called progesterone raises in us, and progesterone is the uncomfortable hormone. It's the hormone that's coming to the body to let the egg know you're not going to become a baby. It's time to go. So that energy is already an energy of separation and an energy of preparing for death. And it has an energy of failure within itself. Nature didn't make it. Nature is designed to make it. That egg that was in your grandma is going to die. And that's inevitable. So a lot of us connect with grief during that week. And with letting go and with killing and quitting. So every month in the last 6 months, every month I've gone through that week, I almost quitted my business. Because I'm going through a lot of changes and new launches, and it just is the week where everything becomes a bit too much for me. And I have to remind myself that I'm going through this and utilize it instead of being a victim of it. So much so that my boyfriend has my moon calendar, my cycle, in his calendar to help me with it.
Oh, that's so great. I know there are apps for that too,
Yes.
for your partner to download.
Because once you are in it, sometimes you're in it. But it just takes over. So this week, for me, is the week of the archetype of the sage. The scholar, the priestess is the person that is like starting to go inward, but hasn't fully fallen into the personal work. It's still like observing and analyzing, but it definitely needs to like create space. And for us women, it's good to know because then we make the space intentional instead of needing to create drama in order to have it.
How would one ask for space? It seems so
counterintuitive.
Well, it seems counterintuitive, but also seems like if I was in work and I went to my boss or significant other and I tried to explain what's happening to me right now and ask for space of like, hey, I just need a couple of days. How would you advise?
You will bring me first to do a talk in your company for everybody to know this information. Because we don't have education in the culture. And so it's very difficult.
I love that idea of having corporate talks that include how to understand the menstrual cycle. I mean, it would not only help your team in how they work best with each other, but also help your team have better relationships at home with their significant other, which means they would be more productive and intuitive and creative when they're producing for you.
This is what I meant in the beginning of the conversation when I was like, the company keeps on having losses in certain departments like human relations and conflict, and it's coming from humans not being set up for success. So yeah, as a pioneer, the first time that you go to your boss and you say, you know what, I'm PMSing and I need the next 3 days minimum conversation possible. Instead of calling me, send me texts.
Have you done this yet? Have you gone into a company and had the ability to teach the entire organization about? I
have worked so far with the women departments. I just finished with a company called Close.com. They're a sales sells software company, a
Okay.
startup, very successful.
Why not include the men in this conversation?
No, it's absolutely necessary. It's just we're waiting for the men to understand that there needs to be a budgeting human resource department dedicated to feminine leadership. And then hopefully my telephone number will be there.
I know that you're working on a docuseries.
Yes.
And I think this would be amazing to record you calling companies and pitching them on the idea of you coming to speak and sharing this information with their entire team. And I say this as I was a pharmaceutical rep for years, which I don't know, maybe it's not the first place to start is with the pharmaceutical companies, but they would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in many companies. Let's take it to Coca-Cola or Google of programs that they do to elevate leadership or to reward or to create a more of a greater collaboration amongst their team. I remember as being a pharma rep, we all went to Vegas and there's thousands of us and on big stages and we would jam out and they would teach us stuff. And it feels like it would be revolutionary to have you on a stage in front of 5,000 plus employees teaching them all this together collectively, the ones who are menstruating, the ones who are not, the ones who are going through menopause, and bringing that into light and how much, wow, I mean, it just, yes.
This is my vision, babe. And I think a big part of why I'm right now in the States, it's calling in women like yourself that can help me open those doors. Because in order for me to learn and integrate this wisdom, I had to go to the other side of the planet to study Tantra for 10 years in Southeast Asia to really understand this. And then I had had a somatic therapy master to understand the psychological and somatic connection of this. And then I had to study leadership. And now I have all of this wisdom. And now it's like, okay, let's go back into the world and bring this what is necessary. And so the vision is exactly what you just said, because it will solve within itself so much of the problems that then we also take home, that then we put it when we vote, and then it's like it's so...
It's systematic, it's connected.
And it is at the root of who we are, because we exist, because women bleed. Like, it's just, it's at the source of life. And so just to bring back the documentary you mentioned, What is a Woman? We are forgetting. This is why we have a documentary called What is a Woman, where a journalist goes around asking people and does not get an answer. That a woman is a mature female human, period.
So why not call your program Women Leadership as opposed to Feminine Leadership?
Because I don't want to teach only women. I want to go into corporations and talk with the male CEOs who have to make the decisions for those women to have the spaces for the leadership to be balanced.
So it would be relevant for a man to come and take Feminine Leadership.
It would be compulsory. Do you have women in your home? You need to learn this. Do you have women in your company? You need to learn this. If you run an only men corporation, then good luck.
Tell me about a man who has taken Feminine Leadership.
My boyfriend.
One. Have you met others?
Oh yeah, I've had one-on-one clients. I don't have them in groups because I'm right now niching for women. Also waiting for the moment where a man comes and says, you know what? I want to invest. I'm going to invest in you translating this content. I do have to record it again and talk with my brothers and not with my sisters, and, explaining for them. But I'm just waiting for the moment. I've taught one-on-one, though. I've had men in positions of leadership that were like, all right, do you take men clients too? And I was like, I love them. It's a great change for me.
So I before we started this conversation downstairs, I had the opportunity to sit on the couch with you and share my story.
Yes.
Of how I got to create WeDeepen and the Dating Dojo and this podcast and Feminine Weapon as well. However, I haven't heard your story yet. How did you get here?
Great. I love that question. I always, whenever I get asked that question, it's like, where do I start? So I was born.
You can start anywhere. This is going to be my last question, and I want to know. So please share this story.
So I want to also share it in a way that is relevant for whoever has been listening to us until now. So I will start by saying my mom and my dad already knew a lot of this. So I grew up in a home where, for example, my first bleed was celebrated. My mom had a gift prepared, and it was really sweet because she had bought these tops, but she bought them many months before I bleeded. And so by the time I bleeded, my breast had developed, so I couldn't wear the tops anymore. And that little detail was really cute. So I had the rite of passage of celebrating my bleed. I had a beautiful relationship with my mom. I learned about sexuality from her, not to the level that I've learned now. I had to do a little bit of deconditioning as well, because my father being Muslim had an effect, and my mom being Christian had an effect too. And maybe we do another podcast about the role of religion in fucking it all up. Very, very good. But this education that I had, I went to a Waldorf school, so I also was like, my head was wired in a specific way. I was taught how to think, not just how to absorb knowledge and then regurgitate it in the exam, but never understand it and never know how to debate or how to make my own concepts. So I was very privileged. I grew up not with a lot of money, but with a lot of good education. So when I finished college, I was studying 2 degrees at the same time, and I was working and I was modeling, and I was already starting to be successful in the TV world as a face. And I went into this, it was like a cyclist tour around Spain. It's like, I don't know, the tour, the French tour, I don't know if you guys follow it here, but basically just cyclists going around the country. And so we were the girls that will welcome the winners and give them the prize and be on TV for like a few minutes every day. And I remember this being important because I was like, fuck, you've made it to what a girl in her early 20s would want. A degree, a job, attention, and I was just like, none of this makes sense or is fulfilling or allows me to be happy and healthy. I was aware of the compromises that were needed to be made in order to be successful. And I was like, I remember coming back from that tour and going to visit my mom for dinner and being like, Mom, if this is it, I want out. But out in my early 20s was, I'm just gonna find the best way to get out of here and commit suicide. But it wasn't from the place of a heavy depression. It was from the place of, I'm winning, and winning doesn't feel good. So tell me what's next. And my mother was wise enough to say, I think you need to take some time. Why don't you go with a friend of her who is doing a silent retreat? And so the following morning at 6 a.m., I grabbed my backpack, I jumped on my mother's friend car, and I went to a 10-day silent retreat.
This is at what age?
This was 21.
Wow. Wow, to have access to that type of modality at 21.
My parents were both already meditating every day. We were tippy-toe around the house because either mom was meditating or dad was meditating. Somebody was always meditating. So it wasn't super new and foreign. It wasn't what I was choosing in my teens. I was a rebel, and I continue being a rebel afterwards, but I was a rebel that knew that whenever shit hits the fan, I go meditate. And that served me a lot. What happened in that place is that I fell in love for the first time in my life with a man. And
on a silent retreat?
Yeah. On a silent retreat, through not being able to talk, but it was a really beautiful setup because it was a few houses in nature, and we will have time for meditation, but then we will just like go and work in the garden or like peel things in the kitchen, like it was. And so I fell in love with this kid. We were kids, we were 21, but we fell madly in love. And he was on his way to Thailand to study Tantra and meditation with a guru there in a little island. And after 2 months of being separated, I gave up everything. My modeling career, my contract with my agency, my flat, my car, my acting school that I had fought really hard to get into, all my contracts, and I took an airplane and I went to Thailand. And I thought I was taking a 2-week vacation. That's what I told the acting school. I never went back. I still think I owe them the payment of that month. And 6 months later, I was running barefoot and half naked in Thailand, learning why I knew I couldn't fit in and what I needed to master in order to have the life I knew I was going to have, which is the one I have now, which is absolute freedom, doing something I believe in, no compromises, or minimum some things you can't avoid, but like absolute integrity with my heart and success and abundance with no price. Like I don't need to sell my soul. I was seeing that you needed to sell your soul in order to be successful in that reality. It's been a process of 10 years. I'm very grateful it was really early. I'm very grateful it was led by love and not by a cancer or a breakup or a bankruptcy, which is often how we wake up. It's like reality hits you. For me, it came through love. I have a lot of respect for the younger version of myself that had the courage to give it all up in the beginning of her career. And a lot of people call me crazy and say, you have so much talent. You could be the next, whatever the name of the next journalist was in TV, and you could have a super successful modeling career. And, you know, I speak 3 languages. I have 2 degrees. What are you doing throwing it all through the window to go study Tantra? And
I imagine though Tantra can actually add to making that career, if that's the direction that you did choose to go, make you a better actor, make you a better business person. Absolutely. It's an addition.
It makes you a better human being.
Yeah, but the external world is like, why are you doing that? You're going to fuck it all up doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that a big part of that was the work of deconditioning that I needed to do, from also the amount of fucks we give for what other people say, which keeps us in this, it's like the tall puppy syndrome. It keeps us all in this system that doesn't work, but we all keep there because what will the others say? Like I had to really exercise that. And exercise trusting my own intuition. Sometimes your own intuition takes you in the opposite direction of what you should be doing. And training that muscle, and it wasn't like I tell the story and it sounds really amazing, and it was amazing, but it wasn't easy. Like I would wake up at 3 a.m. and be like, what are you doing? You had a scholarship in William Leighton Theatre School in Madrid, and a contract for a movie from Bollywood. What are you doing in Thailand doing yoga? Like, what are you going to do when your savings ends? And then my savings ended within like that year or a half year later. And then I continued for many, many years until I started creating my coaching business and I started having success. Life always provided, because it was not a matter of 2 weeks, not 6 months, not 2 years. It took me half a decade to be like, all right, I think I got a grip of this and now I can start building something. And I started building my coaching practice.
What happened to the boyfriend?
We had the most beautiful romance. We traveled the world. He opened me up to spirituality, well, my parents had opened me up, but he opened me to a whole new level. And then I followed him back to Europe, to Austria, and then we separated there. We didn't have a lot of the tools I have today, but I'm eternally grateful to Gabriel for all I learned with him, allowed me to have the relationship I have today with Pedro. Between that man and my man now, there is 10 years of me being single.
Wow. And it just shows also too that the differences of lives that we all are, each of our souls are guided to in our journey. You know, I think of when I first menstruated at 12, 13, I got my period. It wasn't celebrated. I hid it. I lied about it for a couple of days and just stuffed toilet paper down there until 3 or 4 days later, then I awkwardly, strangely shared with my mother. At 21, I had sushi for the first time. That was like the big thing. When you talk about meditation, I had never heard of meditation until maybe I was like 30 at least.
Wow.
And so these like differences of the realities in the world that we are growing up, it's interesting to know how one person's experience in the same, whole is so different, and how there's so much more to our existence than we actually don't even know is possible.
Yes.
And as you mentioned too, of like looking back in reflection, like as you said in the story, when you tell the story right now, you can see all the joy and the excitement that has come through that experience. But in it, like sometimes I think that sometimes we can look at we can look at our past and tell that story with like, and then I did this and then I did that. But in the moment, there's the challenge and the like we're human in every single moment, and then the reflection is this like spiritual like, oh my gosh, I surrendered and this and that's even too of just to see that like it's the journey.
It's the grit of it.
Yeah, and sharing the stories of our own experiences, and that's even part, like I imagine women coming together through your group program gives them the opportunity to be witnessed and to share and to experience other different realities and then mesh them all together.
Yeah, and it gives them first the realization that, oh, I'm not broken. I am not the only one. Nothing is wrong with me. Or something is wrong with humanity as a whole, but there is definitely nothing wrong with me, separated from them. It gives them permission, because if she can, then I can too. And suddenly everybody can. Mm-hmm. And being witnessed, it gives us belonging.
Mm. This conversation is so amazing to see.
I have an intuition that the phone has run out of battery. So I'm just gonna check to make sure that we still... Okay, it's still on. We are at 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, cool.
And we have 10% battery left.
Okay, perfect. I wanted...
I love it. I can go forever.
No. I'm going to wrap this. I want to wrap this with your programs right now. And I kind of knew. I figured that I might cut some of the beginning, because sometimes it takes like a moment to get into the juicy stuff and where to begin. So you do group programs and one-on-one coaching.
Yes.
I believe you even have a program coming up.
Yes.
What is it? Like, what is the experience, and who's
this for?
Yeah, who's it for?
Great. So my first program is for any woman who wants to awaken her power, who wants to learn about anything we have talked today, from how to understand her mind, to how to understand her emotions, to how to understand her body, how to use her cycle, how to understand her cycle, what is the connection between her sexuality and her consciousness, how does her hormonal roller coaster affect her mind, everything woman, it's in the program. The program is called Radiance, and it's designed for us to be radiant and to understand ourselves and awaken our power, our true feminine power. And we start in November. It's a 4-week program. We have a lot of recorded content and PDFs, but the yummiest, juiciest part is that we gather all together in Zoom. There's women from all over the world, and there's a really strong sisterhood. I've been running this program for years. We run it in a platform it's like a Facebook platform where they can like chat and connect, and it's really, there's friendships that have been forged in Radiance 5-6 years ago that now they travel and visit each other, and they send me pictures. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. And then I have a second program, which is when you have already woke up and realized who you are and awaken your power, now you're ready to go into the world and become a leader. And that's my program called Unique, because I teach women to turn their uniqueness into their businesses. Whether you have a talent, a skill set, something that they're ready to be a leader on and share with the world. Then I help them from the beginning to the end to build their business, from finding their niche to developing their branding and their marketing to setting their sales funnels and advertisement. And we do it all from feminine intelligence. We don't go into burnout. We don't push when we don't have to. We do the right thing in the right part of the month so that you can create your business feeling great about it and not having to fight with it and not having to stop being a woman so you can be successful. And Unique is an ongoing, it's more of a mastermind container. It's 3 months and women can join in any moment.
I love how those programs seem so complementary, and I imagine you don't have to do that first program. You can go straight into Unique.
Yes, if you have done your work already and you're ready to I always give the women who join Unique the access to Radiance pre-recorded as a gift. So that is available as well. But yeah, they don't have, and then you don't have to go into Unique after Radiance because you might already have your business set. And all you have to do is apply what you learn.
Well, I'm so interested to see how your work expands and what you do in the world. And I can't wait to see the pictures of you in front of a big audience of 5,000 buttoned up. Maybe we'll get them unbuttoned before they get there. Professionals really learning and diving deep into this and see how that actually actually helps the bottom line. It's like slowing down to speed up in some sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see myself there too. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Thank you for the work. And if anybody is interested in joining the program, we will put that into the show notes.
Yes.
And also special offering for anyone who's listening or part of the WeDeepen network.
Absolutely. We always have a
perfect. Thank you
gift.
So much for this conversation. It's so enjoyable. And I look forward to future collaborations and work together.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Hugs.
Woo! What a fascinating, rich dialogue. When I first listened to that after recording, it was with my flatmate Angel, and we paused constantly to dive into each of the topics. It was fun. Listening to these episodes with a friend is always a fun idea. Please do go check out that calendar. Meet us in person, see what's happening, whether it's the Dating Dojo or the Magic Human Connection or Feminine Weapon Day is coming up in 2023. Let's be together in person. And if you are not geographically located in a destination that is easy to access a WeDeepen experience and you're growth minded, join us in community there. Sign up, it's free. And you can connect with the others, so you can private message each other, see the programs that are happening. This is for growth-minded people. Step into the world with us. We deepen together. Again, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, follow. It helps more people find it, helps more people discover the experiences to where then you go get to meet them and be in person and play with them. Lots of stuff coming for you in 2023. Super stoked and excited and grateful to have you listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Tune in again soon. Bye.